Okay, this is Block 5, the Roaring Twenties, Section 2, Return to Normalcy, Calvin Coolidge and the election of 1924. Calvin Coolidge can kind of be summed up by how exactly he took the oath of office upon learning that President Harding had died. He was visiting his dad on his farm in Vermont, in the middle of nowhere, Vermont, and a messenger came. His father had no telephone, so there was nobody who could call the guy who was actually now President of the United States, and he was President of the United States. He was Vice President, and he was at his father's farmhouse, and his father had no telephone. So they had to call the town operator, and then she had to send a message on horseback through the fields and woods to find the President of the United States. Along the way, she picked up the local judge, who was a friend of Coolidge's father, and right there in the Vermont farmhouse of his father, Calvin Coolidge took the oath of office as the 30th President of the United States. He is a Puritan. He is the last Puritan to be president. He is a Puritan in the mold of John Adams and his son John Quincy. Stern, taciturn, businesslike. He did not like campaigning. He was nicknamed Silent Cal because he did not particularly like talking. He preferred to listen, and the few words that he did use have more of an effect. He is a deep believer in laissez-faire economics. He is a deep believer in actively trying to do absolutely nothing at all. Coolidge considers it a successful day as president when he does utterly nothing, because he figured that the only thing he could actually do as president was screw things up. He had fundamental faith in the American economy and in American society, and worked hard to do absolutely nothing to let that economy run itself and to let that economy grow. He continued this laissez-faire approach. He famously said that the business of America is business. And that kind of sums up who he is. And in another sense, he said that, a man who builds a business builds a temple. He was a deeply, deeply religious man, as any Puritan would have been. He was the first American president to go on the radio and give a Thanksgiving Day address to the American people, where he asked the American people to appreciate God for all of the economic and material bounties that the United States had been enjoying. He was a perfect president for his time, a president who was perfectly willing and happy to let this growing economy that we talked about run on its own. He is up for election in 1924, and he runs against two different people. The Democrats have another huge problem nominating a candidate. The Democrats cannot decide between a northern progressive candidate and a southern conservative candidate. So eventually they nominate a northern conservative, a man by the name of John W. Davis. John Davis ran pretty much on the same sort of platform as President Coolidge did. But if you're running on the same platform as the president, not many people are going to vote for you if they like the president. Progressives in both parties, Republican progressives and Democrat progressives, were not particularly happy with either candidate. The laissez-faire conservative Coolidge and the laissez-faire, slightly less conservative but still conservative John W. Davis. So they nominated the old Wisconsin fighter Robert La Follette to run on a progressive party ticket. And you can tell from the map that the Democrats won the South, where Democrats always win. La Follette wins his home state of Wisconsin, and Coolidge sweeps the rest of the map. Just from looking at it, he won probably around over 300, between 300 and 400 electoral votes, probably closer to 400. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But when the election of 1924 came and went, the American people had clearly shown their support for the laissez-faire policies and personality of Calvin Coolidge. Just one other thing about his campaign, and just watching the political campaign that was this past year. Coolidge is the last American president not to campaign. He never left the White House. He never left Washington, D.C. It's called a Rose Garden campaign. He figured that the prosperity of the country was enough, and he did not go out, he did not give speeches. Sometimes he released short statements to the press, but he pretty much let the country look at the country for itself and decide whether he was a good steward for the economy. And the American people decided that Silent Cal, that Puritan Vermonter, was indeed a good steward for the economy. And even though he didn't even bother to campaign, he won the election overwhelmingly.